Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we've got an interesting fact to tell you about the two most powerful armies in the world. Among the world's most powerful military forces, the United States and Russia are the main military powers of the moment. And this has given rise to considering NATO versus Russia. Which military force is more powerful? But first, please like and subscribe to this channel, and then sit back and relax. The situation on the border between Russia and Ukraine began to make headlines last November, with the first reports of a significant Russian military reinforcement in the area. Since then, the degree of rhetoric has escalated to the point of fearing the outbreak of a full-scale conflict. But the relations between Russia and the United States are now at a critical and dangerous point. To avoid a further deterioration of the situation, Russia demands security guarantees from Washington and NATO, which provide, first of all, a veto on the expansion of the alliance towards Russian borders and the cessation of its activities in the former Soviet republics, which Moscow sees as its catchment areas. In this regard, Moscow anticipates a written statement from NATO outlining its stance on the continent's future security system. This statement must include assurances that the former Soviet Union's Ukraine and Georgia will never join the alliance, despite their desires to do so. Despite a significant increase in the number of troops stationed on its border with Ukraine, Russia, for its side, denies having any plans to assault or invade the country. Moscow asserts that the movement of military formations within Russian borders is a matter only for the government of the nation-state and has no bearing on other nations. Russian President Vladimir Putin had also said that the country has no aggressive plans, but will react harshly in case of unfriendly measures by Western countries, referring to NATO's possible refusal to give up its military activities in Eastern Europe. Because they're at their door and they have nowhere to retreat. In this climate of tension, in which there is speculation about a possible confrontation between the two powers, the question arises as to which would be the most powerful army. NATO forces. NATO is currently the world's leading military alliance. It can have almost 3.5 million troops and civilians combined, according to the organization on its website. Each member state commits to contribute with different weight and strategic influence. According to the Department of Defense, the United States is the main partner of the Atlantic Alliance and invests more in defense than double the rest of NATO combined, with spending for 2021 estimated at $705 million. For many decades, the North American country has been the main military power in the world, and one of the nations that's participated the most in international conflicts. The arms power of the United States outnumbers the rest of the powers in almost all sections. Altogether, Biden has more than 40,000 land vehicles, 12 combat aircraft and 460 ships, including 94 destroyers and 20 aircraft carriers, 9 of them helicopter carriers. Russian Army. Public spending on defense in Russia reached 55,128.6 million euros, representing 11.43% of total public spending. Putin has a large army of more than 1,1,540,000 active soldiers and a reserve of another 2 million. Regarding heavy weapons, the Kremlin has 336 intercontinental ballistic missiles, 2,840 battle tanks, 5,220 armored infantry fighting vehicles, more than 6,100 armored personnel carriers, and more than 4,684 artillery pieces. Russia would lose the war against NATO for one simple reason: healthcare. The Red Army suffered from more than 11 million fatalities and 15 million injuries during the period from the German invasion in 1941 to the Soviet victory in Berlin in 1945 and the invasion of Manchuria in August. This tool is unheard of and unmatched in history. The Soviet Union needed to fully mobilize its people and economy to fight such a war. The task of caring for so many wounded fell on the USSR's unified healthcare system. The struggle resulted in significant advancements in medical treatments, particularly for frostbite and thermal injuries, and both military and civilian hospitals contributed, the latter out of necessity. A similar trend occurred in the United States after the Iraq War, although on a smaller scale. American EMT teams are now much more likely to have tourniquets within easy reach to treat bleeding from gunshot wounds, a direct lesson from the experience of soldiers in Iraq. In 2018, Russia transformed its post-Soviet military forces into one capable of waging full-scale war with NATO. New mechanized divisions are forming on Russia's western borders, with soldiers wearing new uniforms and carrying the latest hardware. They have new rifles, tanks, radios, and advanced electronic warfare equipment that rivals the best in the world. However, Russia lacks a medical backbone that can absorb the shock of a larger conflict, according to an influential Russian military magazine. The result would likely result in an overwhelmed medical system and excessive loss of life for Russian soldiers if they go into battle with the West. The Russian medical system may even have a hard time handling casualties in Ukraine, as there are few hospitals near the border, with those in Bryansk, Oryol, Kursk, and Belgorod, according to the VPK or Military Industrial Courier newspaper. All these cities will immediately find themselves in the combat zone, the newspaper warns, prioritizing the treatment of the civilian population over soldiers. Near Russia's western border, the closest primary hospital to a future front line is in Podolsk and has 2,000 beds. At the start of major hostilities, Russia could quickly suffer up to 100,000 casualties. Despite the military buildup in this region, there has been no corresponding increase in military medical facilities. Second, the Russian health system suffers from poor quality in mild terms of care and a lack of qualified doctors. While Russia maintains a public healthcare system, it is underfunded and has suffered two blows. The first was the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, followed by a recovery, and then the 2014 Russian financial crisis following the crash of the oil prices and the imposition of Western sanctions. There are simply not enough funds, which means shortages of doctors, hospitals, and equipment, which translates into long wait times. This is pronounced in rural areas, where medical care is similar to that in a developing country. If medical services exist at all, 17,500 towns and villages do not. Those who suffer from care shortages are often veterans. The article stated that Anatoly Kulyov, a retired general in the Soviet anti-aircraft missile forces, denounced the poor state of veteran care in Russia during a recent veterans conference. In the case of a conventional war, this same overloaded system will have to absorb tens of thousands of casualties suddenly. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, the subscription button, and the notification bell. To get notified when new videos are uploaded from this channel, please share your thoughts about NATO versus Russia military power in the comment section below. Thank you.